The internet dies. Bots and algorithms reign. Silence echoes loud.
The program you are about to hear is fiction, science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction, fiction, fiction.
Digital desert salutations to all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to another episode of Exofathom, the show that dares to explore the outside reaches of understanding. I am Nick, and I am joined by my two lovely co hosts. My goodness. Mike, how are you?
Man, if I could figure out the jungle of wires at my feet, I'd be a lot better. But you know me.
Understandable. Hanging in there on the wires. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have Ayla here. How are you, Ayla?
Yo, I'm good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
February.
Indeed.
Good times.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in. We really appreciate all of you out there. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a concept that's fairly new, was created not too long ago, but is quickly sort of gained momentum and popularity, and it's called the dead internet theory. I could go over all of that stuff momentarily, but of course, I always start our episodes with a question to my co-hosts, and so we should probably kick it off with two questions I have for you guys. So the first question, and Mike, your answer might be a little bit different than Ayla's, but I would love to hear both of your answers here. What is your favorite part of the early internet?
Ooh. I'll answer your question with another question.
Ooh, okay.
I'm that kind of guy. How are you doing, dear host?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, everything's fine. Just getting back into the rhythm of hosting again. So that's going to be a fun one to try to navigate. But yeah.
Nice. Okay, then I'll properly answer your question. I miss the anonymity. I feel like modern day internet, especially on social media, everyone takes everything way too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room for comedy or for any sort of I guess cleverness. I don't know, but it seems like if you post the wrong thing, you might end up on a watch list, which is borderline a problem because back in the early internet days, everybody had a handle. Everybody was anonymous. You kind of just fool around and not worry about any sort of backdraft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. I remember the only identifying mark being your AOL Instant Messenger name, and that was only to friends. But Ayla, what is your favorite part of the early internet?
Well, I am nostalgic for that connectivity dial-up sound. I miss that. It was always so comforting, like, gonna get on the internet, waiting for the internet. Like, it just was the best. You just get this little, like, Pavlovian burst of excitement, when you hear that sound. So that was the first thing that came to mind. And then the second thing is probably going to be a little ageist. I kind of miss when it was just the young people who know how to use the internet because, like, you know what I mean? Like, you could see as the, like, CEOs and executives got wind, all of a sudden you've got ads, pop-ups, paywall, they just started capitalizing everything. So I think that's kind of, one thing that I don't appreciate is when it started to become less of like a social, I don't know, like experiment, wild west kind of thing. And then it started to become this like, oh, this can threaten people's livelihoods. It got so serious all of a sudden.
You damn normies. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Well, no, like I remember, like before they figured out how to put ads between videos, especially on YouTube, you could just watch whatever you want. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I know everyone's a buzz right now because Netflix is ending the password sharing. And they sent like a really scary, like, we will charge you extra if we catch you doing it. And so it's just kind of like it's been so buttoned up and formalized, and it's just kind of weird because it's a non thing. Like, it doesn't exist, but it does, and it has a lot of rules.
Marty, we got to go back. We got to fix the internet.
We do.
We got to go back to torrenting. All these people are assholes, Marty. We got to go.
I want my LimeWire. No,
Yes.
that messes with artists. So, I mean, like, I totally get why it happened, but it's also like, oh, I do kind of miss the like just wildness of
The
it all.
frontier aspect of it.
Yeah, and there was something about being like a scrappy young thing that, like, your parents didn't know what Facebook was, like nobody knew how to code MySpace. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just picked things up and you were in like this little club. So again, I preface that by saying it's going to sound really ageist, but again, I just feel like when it was a kid domain thing or like a young kid thing, I don't know, I guess it was a little more fun.
I don't think it's ageist. Maybe like a learnerist. I don't know, people that aren't willing to learn new things. Because I've seen old people learn plenty of old dogs learning new tricks.
Right.
The
Well,
whole thing is like an excuse for laziness, I feel like.
true. And I guess you're right. Like, I'm more thinking about, well, once the older folks caught wind of the potential of the internet, that's when it was like, oh, let me copyright this and put a fine, like, then it was like, how can I make money off of it? And I think that's kind of where it suffered.
Thanks, Metallica.
I know, right? With Napster and all of that. Lars Ulrich.
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
They were they were the first ones to put the nail in the coffin of the Wild West internet.
Interesting.
Sure.
And again, I get it. I mean, like, artists deserve,
Sure, but I think
stuff.
I'm sure they're not getting paid what they should be per stream. I'm sure that return rate is real low.
Probably.
But that underbelly, though, the internet will always exist. You may get smaller, may move into different parts, but that Wild West days, the internet is still there. You just have to jump through a bunch of hoops to go find it.
Oh, right. And yeah.
And add yourself to a few lists if you want to be
Right,
a part of it.
right. Create a couple of fake
Go back to
server
your
IDs.
anonymity thing. Yeah.
I mean, like, if you're not on a list, are you really living?
That's true. That's true. Everybody's got a birth certificate, so there you go.
Hey, at least you have friends now, right? You have somebody watching you. You're famous.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I like what you guys both touched on. I think that there's something that speaks to what we feel that we may have been what has potentially been lost in the process of, as Ayla was talking about, the sort of corporatization of the internet. And maybe a better word is centralization, the centralization of things on the internet. But yes, there was a time in which anonymity was just the norm and it wasn't a novelty. And there was a new frontier. There was always something new to find on the internet. I think that that's one of the biggest takeaways I get. This isn't new early internet, but this is like mid-aughts internet. But you guys remember the site StumbleUpon?
Oh, yeah. That's like dead now.
Oh, yeah. It's totally dead. It's because it was full of viruses. And
oh, great.
Because you could just add any page to StumbleUpon. And of course, eventually you're going to land on a malware page or something like that.
Just like all great frontiers.
Yeah,
it was catch some virus.
It was like virus roulette. Either you get this really cool like site that lets you program colors to music or something like that, or you get a virus.
It really was like the Wild West. Yeah, it's like virus or cholera, or I don't know. I'm thinking of Oregon Trail. Like, oh my gosh,
dysentery.
Right, dysentery. Yeah. Oh, you got bit by some malware. Rattlesnake. I mean, malware. It's like
in the early days of eBay, there's a site called fatfingers.co.uk where you could search things up, and it would search for all the misspellings of the thing you're searching for.
For people with fat fingers.
Yeah,
Oh,
you would find some cheap stuff on there. That was like odd internet too. Those are the good.
that's brilliant. I love that.
Well, and see, I think that that's what I wanted to get at with this episode. So I had a little introductory here that I was going to say before, but I didn't want to mess up my cold open too much. But basically, the dead internet theory is the idea that the internet, once a place of vibrant discussion and exchange of ideas, is becoming a hollow, empty shell of its former self. Let's see. This theory suggests that the intent, which was once placed on excitement and creativity, is becoming increasingly centralized, homogeneous, and controlled. As a result, the online experience for users is becoming less personal, less engaging, and less meaningful. There are several factors that could contribute to the dead internet theory. I will get into some of those momentarily, but I just wanted to pause with you guys and say, what do you think about this concept of centralization? Because I also thought of the term efficiency, and that was going to be my next question to you guys, which is kind of a layup, and it's not really a trick question. But do you see drawbacks in the concept of efficiency?
Hmm.
Uh,
Efficiency?
Mhm.
Is that
define the realm, I guess. Like,
So I would say efficiency in the sense of, is efficiency always a net good, or could there possibly be drawbacks? I think I'm really just asking in relation to this concept of the dead internet theory, because what I'm thinking is that in an effort for efficiency and centralization, we've lost something in the process. But did we lose anything?
Hmm. Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know, Mike. Did you want to
yeah,
respond?
I do, but I'm happy to let you go first. You know,
No. Go for it.
beauty before age and all that junk.
You're younger than me. All right, go.
That's what you think. That's what I told you.
Yeah, he's really Methuselah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never seen your ID. I actually don't know. Oh my God, did you see he's really Methuselah? That's
Yeah.
as he like strokes his goatee.
Yes.
Yes, efficiency. I think yes and no. We've lost a little bit. We've lost maybe a little bit of critical thinking, the ability. Like now, you just know that's the one place you want to go to find anything, right? Like Google was a website, now it's become a verb. Just Google it, that sort of thing. Which back in the day, you had multiple search engines, so you could, pick and choose, and now it just seems like there's only one. And sure, there's alt tech. The fact that we've had to come up to the term alt tech tells me that we've lost something. But no, in the sense that if you do your digging and you find something that's just no one has found, nowadays there's a little bit more of a dopamine kick when you find that thing versus back in the day, because there were so many things to look up. So centralization brings everything in, efficiency brings everything in, which stops that thinking. But when you find those hidden gems, I think that's when it goes really great. Like some of the stuff I think about, like I'm on YouTube all the time. Some of the stuff I think about is like Marble Hornets or Meat Sleep or some of these like really rabbit hole ARGs or horror series or something like that, where now you've found something that took a lot of work in finding, and you feel a certain sense of reward just for stumbling upon it, all pun intended. So I think it's like a double-edged sword. So like yes and no. With respect to like the industry or like tech industry that lies behind it, efficiency tends to always be the goal. Might make some of the practitioners a little bit lazy, but you can always whip that into shape with other tech.
Yeah, I kind of like this idea that we might be post gold rush in the internet, whereas back in the early days of the internet, it was easy to sort of strike gold with content, and now it seems there might be less of it, but the significance of the discovery might be heightened now. But it's interesting about that concept. While I think it is true, I think it also does sort of reinforce this concept of a dead internet, because the supposition is that there are less contributors to large, not large. There's less contributors to content that's consumed. And therefore you have like these monoliths that end up creating the content. Like you say, think of somebody like Mr. Beast, who started off at the very early end of the internet doing things like counting to 100,000 on his, webcam, to now he almost has the entire market cornered for what he does on YouTube. And
Sure. But
I
there's
think
always
it's just less populace of people, maybe less competition, makes it feel more empty.
I'm gonna call in the Florida man rule.
Mm-hmm.
Most interest on Florida and all the laws that get broken and all of that seems like makes Florida look like a crazy place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really it's because they have a law that allows them to showcase more things, more
sunshine law.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same thing goes with the internet. You're always gonna same thing with like music. You're always gonna have your Beatles. You're always gonna have your big like monoliths and stars and all of that. But if you go digging, you might find something like a Sputnik Monroe, which is so local to West LA. The band is dead, but it's so local to West LA. Maybe 100 people in the whole city of Los Angeles know about it. But it was a decent band, but they still exist. I don't think the number of content creators go down. I think the effort of people looking for stuff, or the algorithm that goes down. You just end up clicking on the same stuff over and over and over from your quote unquote favorite content creators. Whereas if you like put in some effort and went digging, you could get past some of that Mr. Beast, PewDiePie, any of like those big names, and find something that you really like.
Right. I guess that's a good point, is that what we might be constructing is a sort of a self-imposed desert of content. In that, yes. And I think that's where I was going with this question of efficiency, because in a sort of, corporate model, efficiency is ideal. But then you run into this problem on the personal level where, why would I try to go watch somebody else when Mr. Beast is trending? And I have all of this other stuff to watch from him or from PewDiePie or a giant, YouTube creator, just speaking in YouTube terms. But this can go off to, why would I go to the small mom and pop shop that charges me an extra $2 when I can go to Walmart?
Yeah, I run into this problem a lot with music, where you're like, yeah, I like the same artist, but if I also get bored of the same artist. So I can listen to the same thing over and over, or I can go do some digging. And sometimes it's finding, a Mr. Beast, or finding something that's really popular that I'm not used to, or it goes into feeling like Tarantino took over my music playlist. Now I'm listening to all this stuff I've never heard before in my life. But that's up to, I hate to say the word, but consumer. I really hate this notion of consumerism when it comes to art. But it comes down to the person taking in the thing. It's like, yeah, you can go to Walmart all you want, but I guarantee if you go to these mom and pop shops, you'll probably find something you're not used to. You just have to do some digging. Even in hip hop, it goes back to, are you willing to dig through the crates, or are you just going to listen to whatever somebody feeds you?
Sure. Curiosity can be the engine out of it for sure. Ayla, what do you think?
Well. I think Mike, you made a lot of really good points there. As you were talking, a phrase came to mind. It was, how do I find what I don't know what to search? You know what I mean? I mean, I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is that before you had aggregating websites that were more accessible, like StumbleUpon, or just, through networking with friends or hearsay or just people going down really weird rabbit holes, and then they mention it on an interview and everybody's like, oh, what is this about? So I do think that in a lot of ways the internet is great for the curiosity of the human spirit. But I think when, like you were saying, Nick, when you start to centralize stuff, or you have a primary search engine that everybody sort of just defaults to, then you start to either knowingly or unknowingly put controls on people finding things that they didn't know they were looking for or stumbling upon stuff. And so I don't know. I mean, it's weird because as I was writing that, I was thinking to myself, like, wow, it's kind of like deep. That's like man's quest for meaning, or I mean, it's just as like anything else where it's like I'm looking for something, but I don't know what it's called. And sometimes that's just something new, like you mentioned with music, but also with music, same with ads. Exposure and repetition tends to be a driver of interest. And so the more you see something, the more you're like, oh, let me click on this. So if you're never seeing something, you never click on it, you never think to click on it, you don't organically think of it. Like
That conclude, yeah, and that finishes the feedback loop, I think, too, because then it raises the question: which came first? Was it the conditioning through elements that I will get into shortly, or was it that we ourselves were lazy and sort of the internet catered to that laziness?
Well, and this is what's going to really bake your noodle is like monkeys and crows. There's that study, what is 100 monkeys? If a bunch of monkeys on one continent discover that
Yeah,
you
the
can use
100th monkey.
you can use a stick to get, for people who are listening.
Mm-hmm.
If one monkey learns how to use a stick as a tool to get food, and then like a whole bunch of them start doing it, you'll actually see another monkey on like another continent figuring it out also at around the same time. So I always find that really interesting because I kind of wonder if the internet is sort of a, I don't know, like manifestation of something that we could have been doing before and not realizing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that. That goes back to well, fungi, our conversation on fungi, our conversations on
Fungi.
fifth-dimensional stuff. I'm gonna say fungi. Thank you very much.
I like saying fungi now. It's so
Look,
gross
as a
sounding.
fun guy, I want to say it's fun guy. All right.
Okay.
Oh yeah, all the puns are coming out now.
Yeah.
It's the year of the dad jokes for me.
There you go.
But yeah, I can see that where, I mean, it's always been kind of the thing, right? Where we have this intuition about something, and then science catches up to it. The internet, you can argue, is just science catching up to our intuition of a global network of species kind of queued into each other. And you would have
Burn
to,
belly.
like even just for the sake of evolution, you might need that for any conscious creature. Like that was true with calculus. Calculus was discovered about the same time on two different parts of the world. Yeah, so it all kind of rings true. Just the internet is the same. It's just a way to share it, and it's become the technological means of doing it.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump around a little bit and talk about some contributing factors. I think that we're sort of up in the air about this dead internet theory, and we'll talk about the philosophy behind what we're talking about, which we've kind of already touched on in prior episodes, so that'll be brief. But I wanted to give you guys at least a few factors that could contribute to why the internet may feel to some so empty and devoid of any sort of life. One of those contributing factors, and perhaps the largest one so far, are bots. And bots are automated programs that perform tasks on the internet, such as posting comments, sending messages, or performing other actions that can affect the online experience of humans. Its estimated percentage of the internet activity that is generated by bots vary widely, but some sources estimate that as much as 60 to 70% of all internet traffic is generated by bots. This can include both malicious bots, such as those used for spam, scams, and hacking, as well as benign bots, such as those used for web indexing and online monitoring. And there are ways that the bots could manipulate the internet to make it feel a little bit more illusory. Maybe that's a better word, since we don't want to say that it's dead yet. Bots can play a heavy role in creating an illusion or a perception of the internet or even outside of the internet. And one of the ways is spreading false information. For example, bots can be programmed to post misleading comments or links, to manipulate public opinion, or to influence political discourse, which can obviously undermine trust in the internet. Another way bots contribute is by contributing to the centralization of the internet. Bots can be controlled by a small number of organizations whose use of them to manipulate online conversations, obscure the opinions of real users, and control the flow of information. This contributes also to, this contributes to the idea that the internet is becoming dominated by a few large companies who control what people see and how they see it. Also, bots can create the illusion of activity or engagement. And I think that this is the one that sort of is most interesting to me. For example, bots can artificially inflate the numbers of likes, comments, or followers on a given platform, given the impression that there is more interest and participation in a particular topic or person than there actually is. And I just want to stop there for a second, because I think that we've all experienced something like that. And just off the top of my head, Lex Fridman. I don't know if you guys have any examples, but
I plead the fifth. No comment. I would just like to say it doesn't have to be a small corporation. It could be an individual spinning up a
it
botnet.
definitely.
No comment. I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
I never did nothing. I was never there. That was not me.
Right. I do like this idea that bots can be used, sort of as tools in that respect, because I think that that's for as much as we might think, bots are for, sending you a virus or indexing the internet, like the idea that they could potentially sway public opinion and public perception outside of the internet is the most intriguing to me.
Sure, but there's things to catch this. Like your spam filter uses, in the very basic sense, uses what's called a naive Bayesian network, and it's just a series of probabilities, probability equations to figure out whether or not it's a human or a bot. And the spam filter, at least in the early days, was very good at catching stuff. Nowadays, you would probably need to use something that ChatGPT uses, the generative there we
go. All right.
No, generative adversarial. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, my dyslexia again. Adversarial network, where you would need something to combat that network to try to figure out the nitty gritty. And I get where it passes human stuff, because humans have a naivete towards bots. I don't know how to exist, right? But and they're very easily led. I mean, if you went to public school, you're supposed to be like a factory worker. So if somebody emails you something, you assume that it's a human. It works on these assumptions.
I think even deeper, though, when we talk about the relation to social media, I like this idea that, I don't like this idea, but I do think that it's important to point out that bots aren't just sending emails, they're liking things. And likes as a perception to the public are vastly important.
Yeah, but to the public, but to a programmer, it's just clicking a button. It's just a different kind of action, but the same kind of action, right? If I have a bot network, I could code one of them to message or to post something, and I code all the other ones to like it. I can even code some of them to have a comment that disagrees with the post and then have a whole bot argument where
Right.
different segments of the box like agree to fool you and try to pull you in. As far as a programmer's point of view goes, this is really nice. It's really good if you're trying to sway opinion in one way or another. But then you're getting now into the egoism of the programmer and all this other kind of philosophical talk. But yeah, no, is like to a human liking and posting on social media and that sort of stuff may have a certain weight. To a computer program, that weight doesn't exist. It's just an action.
Oh, certainly it's just an action, but there are people behind that program that have an idea about what they want like to do, and they can utilize those autonoma to sway opinion publicly.
Sure, but it's up to the individual that reads those things to understand that nowadays that those things that are being said may not actually have any weight. Right?
Well, tell that to Twitter.
Hey, I'll be happy to. You want to call me? I'm always here.
Yeah,
We're gonna have some.
we never
great-
did get a solid answer on what percentage of Twitter is bots.
Dude, that code base is fuck. I know. I already get a good understanding of like what's been released in the public. Basically, they built a Tower of Babel. There's a bunch of tech debt, and they just kept building on top of the tech debt. No one ever tried to figure out a proper solution. Now they have to build everything from the ground up. It makes it very hard too. But even basic sentiment analysis, you can, if you have a baseline on who is actually human, you can start to compare that and build probability networks to what is human and what is not human. But you have to know who is human. I guarantee you that you may not get a hard answer to say like, fuck, 75.53993 repeating or box, but you'll get like roughly 60% are box. You can start to build up that sort of answer. But I get like right now, from my understanding, the code base is so fucked due to this whole Tower of Babel tech debt bullshit, which most tech companies do. It's going to take a while to get to that point.
Right. Yeah, it will take a while for us to figure that out for sure. But I do see that I definitely see it as a useful tool, much like kings would sort of throw their kingdom at an enemy. We have people that throw digital people at their enemy.
Sure.
And I think there's something incredibly powerful that is often overlooked. I really do think that people don't, to your point, Mike, I think that people really don't take into consideration that a good proportion of what they might be perceiving on social medias could be driven by some sort of autonoma.
Yes. And what scares me more though is that we as humans, like growing up, you should build at least some sort of defensible knowledge base. And that I guess to put it succinctly, my big fear is that, or the thing that scares me most is that people are so easily swayed by other individuals or by botnets. Because if you don't know, then you don't know. But I mean, you should have at least some ideas on the world that take a considerable amount of evidence that is not weighed by a majority. They have to be somewhere present in the logic, even in the pathos or the ethos of the statement or the argument. Somewhere, some rhetoric should push you, not just, well, this thing got 1,000. This thing tells me to go jump off a cliff and got 10 million likes. I'm gonna go jump off a cliff, right? It's that old thing of like if your friends told you to jump off a cliff. Same thing, like that. That shouldn't have any social currency in our world. But for some reason, otherwise reasonable human beings put currency in the number of likes, retweets, reposts, whatever, however you want to define it. It's a little disturbing that the common adult doesn't have a rhetorical backbone or a philosophical backbone.
Yeah, and I think it comes with a level. I think that comes with a level of cynicism and perhaps skepticism. I think when you have, and I wanted to bring this up specifically because we've seen what's happened with Twitter, the whole spiel with Elon and yada, yada, yada. But it definitely made me think about, why did news companies use Twitter as a metric for what the public opinion is. I mean, because I've seen, and we've had conversations about this before, time and time again, where articles will post a tweet about somebody, something that they're talking about in the article, and then there's a tweet there to reinforce the thing that they're saying. But if it's possible that most of these tweets, aren't organic, then we're just sort of like leading each other with illusions. It's like the
Ooh.
blind leading the blind almost.
Oh, that is so. I think it's the 140 character limit or 280, however long it is. You might be disinterested. Now, you might be disinterested in reading a news article if it's 3 pages long or has 140,000 words or some crazy amount of length. But 120 or 140 words, 280 words, I can do that real quick.
True.
I form an opinion.
Yeah. And I think that, this just harkens back to this concept that perhaps, we don't want, we do crave the efficiency. We want things to be sort of broken down and digested for us without our need to waste energy on it. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. People are really busy in their lives and they have a hard time parsing out what they have to do with their families and their friends and their jobs and all of this stuff. Like, I think that it can be very easy to sort of let the internet do the thinking for you in certain aspects. Of course, you're not gonna listen to the internet on how to, well, who knows? You might. Anyways, that's not what I'm trying to get at. I just think that there is a level of, like you mentioned, Mike, a certain level of self-responsibility that we put on ourselves. But again, to sort of reach back to what Ayla posited before, is like this feeling of like a feedback loop. It's like the internet made it easier for us to sort of turn our critical thinking off. And because we turned our critical thinking off, the internet is becoming more sterile and more efficient because we don't want to look for the things anymore.
Yeah, you can always find your echo chamber, your common house. Playing a lot of Hogwarts, you can always find your common house. So if you're a Slytherin, you can always go back to the Slytherin house. If you're a Dumbledore, you can always go back to your Dumbledore house.
Yes.
You can always go back, and so on and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And Ayla, what do you think about this whole feedback loop and echo chamber type thing?
Yeah, I think I've brought up many times how, maybe not on the air, but I definitely have found it interesting where I'll see news articles citing, well, they'll describe a like wave of social media something, and then you read the article and then it's like they link to the trend, like the trending hashtag, right? So then you click on that and you actually search the hashtag and it's like 10,000 uses with a population of like 300 million. So that's where I was just like, well, okay, any reporter that uses this kind of sensationalist description for something that's completely disproportionate, I can't really trust this reporter. And I think that was kind of my first clue of like, oh, you really do have to do your research. That's weird. Like, and I think that like there was always this sort of standard in journalism, particularly print journalism, because you can't just edit and refresh that. Like that's in print. That went out, that got approved. That is forever in the archives. You can't edit it. So I think that when we went away from print, we sort of like maybe lowered the bar on the accountability of a journalist, or it's the struggles, of the economy that they had to sort of resort to like sensational headlines. Yeah. Clickbaity links. Because I also will say I would happily read a newspaper cover to cover, but like a 3,000 word article. Oh my God. I was reading like a National Geographic article the other day and I was like reading it. and reading it. And I was like, my God, like 20 minutes has gone by. And then I look at the little cursor of my window and it's only like a third of the way down. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. Like, I did not sign up for an hour-long read. Shoot, and it was a good article, but like, I need to get a Kindle now, or I need to go like get the magazine, because I'm just not like inclined to read stuff when I'm working, like on screens all day, like almost everybody is. So I don't know. I mean, I think what also came to mind as you guys were talking was just the sway of social pressure, because if you're in an elevator, they did that study where, if you face the back of the elevator, most people will just queue up and like face the direction that everybody else is facing. And I think that that's less of like those people are dum-dums who did that, like, and more kind of what Nick said is, well, in a fast-paced environment with constant unpredictability, our brains are just constantly like on overdrive. And if it can routinize, like, oh, okay, this flock is doing this is safe, let's do this. And I think they just sort of like hacked something in our brains and sort of took advantage of it, whether knowingly or unknowingly.
Well, I
I
think that
think
this, yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think that we're just sort of like we're at an impasse here, because it feels like we're talking about the sort of nature of expansion and then accumulation. I see it the way like if you think about how a star forms and then dies, right? So everything starts off as a chaotic mist. Eventually, over time, everything sort of congeals into a fiery plasmoid, and then it creates a sort of gaseous star. And then at the the star hits critical mass and then explodes out again, only to sort of repeat the process. Maybe what we see with this need for routinization and sort of streamlining is just the natural process in which reality functions, and that we are constantly improving to a point of overform that eventually falls apart and becomes chaotic again, only to build the sandcastle up again. What do you guys think? Maybe? No?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was just funny. Another thing that came to mind before was I remember years ago I saw like I don't know, it was like a reporter on a TV or something like that. And they were declaring that at some point we realized that experts can no longer distinguish between a fake video or an fake audio and like a real one. Like before you could see markers, you could see editing, you could see like strange dubbing and stuff like that, but that the technology has gotten so good that you can no longer trust firsthand video accounts or audio accounts, which made me think about like, well, that's interesting, because it's slowly peeling back what we already knew, that what's true is only true until proven false. But in a state where you can't really, or in like a in a bubble where you can't really trust.
The truth is always out of grasp.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just,
Constantly.
truth doesn't exist. All we have is verisimilitude, which often is just what the bigger group decides is going to be true for that day or decade or century or millennia, So like, I do think it's interesting. And my favorite Napoleon Bonaparte quote is, treason is only a matter of dates. Not like I'm trying to advocate. I hope that's like a hot button word. I'm not at all. I'm just saying.
Oh, geez, I wasn't here. I gotta go. Gotta get the fuck out.
I know. No, I'm not all
I'm
crazy.
kidding now.
I know. I got like really like, oh, I shouldn't say that word, but he's right. I mean, like, in like the history of humans,
Of course,
things have always changed meanings, and so I think that's kind of interesting.
Of course, like our country was founded by a bunch of terrorists, according to the British, right? Like one country's freedom fighters is another country's terrorists.
Yeah.
And it'll always be that way.
Probably.
But, You're touching on something very interesting though with the scrolling thing, something that's nuanced. That like back in the day when you read a newspaper, you just read it to read it, unless you're one of those that like, oh, this continues on page 10, this continues on page 21, this continues on page, I don't know, maybe you have a really thick newspaper on 105. And like, I'm not gonna read all this crap, right? But nowadays it's really easy just to start to read an article and see how far it goes. I mean, I even do this with my favorite geez, I'm gonna show myself, aren't I? Show my hand. That's fine, I don't give a fuck. So I even do this with sort of like my favorite morning news YouTube videos, breaking points, right?
I was gonna be like, morning becomes eclectic.
Like, you know, like follow the hill for a bit, follow breaking points, great. But the second they give me their thesis and like 2 arguments for their thesis, and I see that there's 10 minutes left to go, even on the YouTube video, I'm like, all right, I'm done. Unless like the chemistry is really going that day between the two,
Yeah.
and I can source it out, then I'll stick around for the entertainment. But I think newspapers, like, there wasn't that thing. There was never this thing where you can tell how long something's going to be, which nowadays is the allure of live streams. You never know how long a live stream is going to be. So you have this in gaming, it's a small feedback loop. So you have the whole game, you're trying to finish the video game, but then you have smaller and smaller feedback loops of, well, you beat a multi-level boss. All right, you beat the boss on one level. You beat an elite mob. You beat one enemy. And the job of the game program and the gaming team and game design is to build a feedback loop in the sense that it kind of spirals out, where you're constantly being fed or wanting that fix. And I think with news, it's the same thing. Twitter is sort of like that one enemy thing where you get the instant dopamine rush. And if a journalist is good, they can build upon that into a wider thing. It's just you as the reader or as the consumer don't know that that's the feedback loop. So you're just sort of going into it like a junkie, sort of blind. You're just looking for that next sensational hit.
Interesting. Well, and I'm thinking about Nick's use of the word efficiency earlier, because I think it might just also be just like a byproduct of humans' need for sort of getting from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time. Maybe that's just like an impulse honed from like hunter-gatherer days or something like that. But, like everybody laments how fast everything is. And, you mentioned your morning show. I mentioned, I think it's an NPR show, but I remember I had a friend at a job I used to work at, and she used to always listen to NPR in the morning. I was really snooty about it and talk to other people about NPR topics. And I always
does she talk like, I really like NPR?
No, she had the tote bag. And what it was that I used to listen to Kevin and Bean because I liked to laugh in the mornings because I really hated that job. Like I was so demoralized and I needed to laugh. Otherwise I would get to work and just be like a monster. Not towards anybody, but internally I just could not do my work. So
Hey,
anyway.
I don't blame you if you go postal.
Well,
That
no,
was
I
all of us.
never would. No, I just need to say that like she looked down on me for like listening to Kevin and Bean, and I could feel that very palpable. And I was actually thinking about this today. And I think it's just funny because it's like I could have responded and said like, "Oh no, I'm just so smart that like I need to turn my brain off sometime." Like you can't assume, but humans assume because it's convenient to do so. And I do feel like the assumption part is what's driving like the fast-pacedness of everything. I think that's at the core, just because that's such a core human thing to do, if that makes sense.
It makes
In
sense.
other words, efficiency.
Efficient, right? Exactly. I'm glad that connected.
In so many words.
Sometimes I talk about like, am I making sense? Like, okay, good.
Do you want to know a little secret of life?
Yes, always.
Wait,
hold on here.
Okay. All right. I got to get back on the rails. We got to give us a secret
wrap
to
this
life.
up. Oh yeah, you want to know? Not the secret, a secret to life.
Gosh, well, false advertising, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, I said a secret to life, child. I'm sorry if you misheard it. Maybe do your due diligence and read the damn words.
You got me. Okay. I'll go back to my Kevin and Bean. Yeah, okay.
And everybody wants to look smart. Nobody wants to be smart.
It's true. Being smart's not good. Look at any genius in history. I have a whole book called Philosophers Who Failed at Love. And it's just all these like smart people.
Hey,
and
look at my
they're
life
like,
over here. You kidding me?
hey, you know, the volume 2.
I could build groundwork to that, but I won't. Go on, Nick. Get us
Oh,
back on
thanks.
the rails.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it. Thank you,
choo-choo.
guys.
Yeah. I'll pass
Don't
your
know
show back
how
over to you.
the perception of being smart affects this, but let's see. I wanted to, since Ayla thrust us into a postmodern hellhole, I wanted to mention Jacques Derrida, or no, Jean Baudrillard, and the concept of the desert of the real. You know, if you guys have remember the Matrix, of course, when Neo is introducing the Matrix, or I'm sorry, when Morpheus is introducing the Matrix to Neo, he welcomes him to the desert of the real, which is basically the post-apocalyptic wasteland that is Earth after the AI sort of destroys everything. And the desert of the real is a phrase used by philosopher Jean Baudrillard to describe a state of reality in which our perception of the world are shaped by simulations and media representations rather than direct experience. This concept is often seen as a critique of postmodern culture and the increasing prevalence of virtual reality and media simulations in our lives. And similarly to the dead internet theory, it reflects a growing sense that the internet, I was looking into Baudrillard and if he had any comments about the internet, because he was around at the beginning of it. And he's the one that famously said that the Iraq war didn't exist. Do you remember that from our hyper reality episode?
Did he? That was him?
Yeah.
Wow, I totally didn't put those two together. Wow.
Yeah, his claim was that the Iraq war did not actually happen because most of the fighting was done by a very small set of people, and the rest of the world only witnessed it through simulations, through the TV, and through media representations, which touches close to what he's talking about with this desert of the real. His sort of supposition is that we've been filtered. Reality has been filtered through so many layers, kind of like the strawberry thing that we talked about in the hyper reality thing, that we're now in a reality in which there is no truth, like Ayla said. And there are no even approximations to truth anymore. We're so far out that the world is devoid of any meaning.
Woo! No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Woohoo. But I just wanted to interject that because you guys were both sort of circling this idea about truth and perception and the filtering through the lenses of the media and all of that stuff. And I think that if Baudrillard was alive right now, he'd have a lot to say about the dead internet theory for sure.
I want to see Baudrillard fight Richard Rorty. They're both long gone, but they're both philosophers that are kind of like two sides of the same coin. Because Richard
Sorry.
Rorty was kind of a wait, Keelan's on?
Yeah, Keelan's here. He said, well said. Not to me, but probably to what you guys were talking about there. Big Mike is here too.
Hey, Big Mike. Being smart is hard and little. Not much rewards to being smart. You can join our paywall after the live discussion.
Right.
But what was I talking? Oh, I was talking about Richard Rorty because he's kind of a more modern philosopher, and he kind of talks about the way humans have reconciled this absence of truth in the past, and that's kind of where like the word verisimilitude comes from in my mind, where it's like, look, we can't get truth with a capital T, we can't get utopia with a capital U, but we can get close, and we could try to keep getting closer. But it is interesting because it's like throughout history, we have this illusion that we knew what was true, and now it's been eroded, and we're kind of like, well, why would we believe that again? Right? So I think we're postmodern hellscape's kind of a good word, because there's so much to think about, and it's so much stuff that does have ancestor writers writing about it, and then there's so much stuff that's so unique to existence now, or coexistence with the internet and all this stuff. So I don't know. I got to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah, but the desert is an ancient symbol. I mean, Young has written on this stuff. The ancients actually lived their symbols. 40 days, 40 nights in the desert. Jesus Christ, all the stuff. Moses leading
Hmm.
the Jews out into the desert during exile, all of that. The internet, this modern day thing of the desert of the real, is just the externalization of the internal ancient secret that inside of all of us there lives a desert. To know yourself, you have to traverse that desert, which means succumbing to isolation, succumbing to starvation, succumbing to maybe thirst, even, and exploring yourself. And the more we don't do that, the more the subconscious, your shadow, will build out the external thing. The whole community as a whole has built the internet as the sort of desert, hence dead internet. Also, arguably Dead Sea. I don't know too much about the Dead Sea, but intuitively that feels like a thing I could draw some sort of equivalence or not equivalence.
Significance.
Yeah, there's no life in the Dead Sea, so yeah, it works.
Similarity to. Similarity is the proper word. I like to use similar triangles, right? You have the desert, you have the Dead Sea, and you have the internet, and you have the dead internet. But no, all of this stuff has been written for a very long time and with very ancient symbols. I would be really interested to see how Young felt about the internet and all this stuff. But the desert of the real, all of the tech we make is just a reflection of our inner selves. So the internet is still that desert that we have to traverse in ourselves, but nobody tells you that. It's not in school. It's not anything like that. So it comes out in subconscious ways in our tech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of wondered what Baudrillard would think of the dead internet theory, because again, his whole thing was just the filters that we perceive reality through, a lot like the strawberry conversation that we had in hyper reality, sort of rob us of the true nature. But again, that is a dangerous supposition, because then you start digging into what that true nature is, and you find out that all you can do is use descriptors in order to describe the thing that you're trying to get to. And that thus the hellscape opens up, and you're in a world where nothing is real. And, you fall into either absurdism, optimism, or nihilism. Right?
Sure, but
Or-
capital T truth only exists as far as the objective reality, right? Everything else is subjective.
Yeah,
So-
but I think that postmodernists would say capital T truth doesn't exist at all. So
Yeah,
not
but
even within the reality.
yeah, but if capital T truth doesn't exist, then that's your capital T truth.
Do
I
you
suppose. I'm not arguing. I'm not a postmodernist.
No, I know you're not. I'm not either. But they catch themselves in this linguistic trapping that makes me laugh a lot. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm what they call. I'm gonna get real snooty. I'm the post modernist. That's where
Yeah.
post squared?
Post.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Mike, we were talking earlier about whether or not the internet is sort of making real something we instinctually did before the internet, right? Like the 100th monkey thing. Maybe
Mhm.
it's the gateway experiment, right? Like maybe there is some sort of universal consciousness, like, because then it's like, if we're debating reality, then it's very cozy to get in with like spiritualism or consciousness talk and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just curious if this sort of human made system of quote truth end quote is falling apart, does that invite an opportunity for us to rediscover something that was lost with all of the, I don't know, the specialization that we thought was getting us closer to truth, but ended up getting us farther away from it?
Yes. But you have to try to bring up the allegory again of Plato's cave. It's like a fucking freshman philosophy major. Internet brought up a bunch of different caves. The algorithm does this even better, right? If you jump into the political matrix and you are either liberal or conservative, the whole red pill thing that the conservatives say, uh, congratulations, you're still in the damn matrix. You're just on the other side. Um, you just pick your cave. But what you have to do to get closer to the truth is to jump from cave to cave. Get out of the cave that the algorithm presents you, go find another cave, hang out in there for a bit, see the shadows, take all the shadows you have, and then blend them together into a certain space. Mathematically, this would be an eigenspace. This is true with Google's first algorithm with their latent semantic indexing, latent semantic analysis. Also true with eigenfaces. Take the average of all the spaces that you've been around, far left, communist, liberal, getting closer to the center, centrist, farther to the right, libertarian, where everything is. Bring those all together into one single space, and you start to get closer to a aggregated truth. And you do that for all spaces, so not just the political space, psychological space, philosophical space, technological space, ad absurdum. But yeah, no, the internet becomes an interesting place if you want to practice those things. But then again, it comes upon the consumer's due diligence to search out those spaces, to find those caves.
True. I mean, I get that. I think what I'm trying to say is, the more we fight to have words to describe the things that we're thinking about, we might be positioning ourselves further away than the actuality of the thing. So I guess that's Nick Strawberry concept of
Only,
hyperreality.
only if
But
you take a single vector. So if you take a single vector of hyperreality on a strawberry, you don't aggregate all the other vectors of hyperreality, then you
yeah,
get
but you still
further
need
away.
language to aggregate stuff, don't you? Like to create the scaffolding footholds to that.
Sure, but it will take a lot more work to build the aggregative hyper reality that we're talking about that takes in the sum of all sub hyper realities. So you have one hyper reality that describes a strawberry one way. You have a different hyper reality that describes a strawberry another way. Take that to n equals infinity, you'll get the actual representation of a strawberry, hopefully.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that doesn't seem to be satisfying to a lot of humans, like an equation, right? Like there's something that's sort of like I can't put my finger on it, but I guess where I was trying to go with this is to bring up like the people that have brain injuries and then like they're in a coma and then they wake up and suddenly they know how to play like all of classical music. Like they just get it, the knowledge somehow. And I think that that's such an interesting, rare case, but it also makes me wonder about sort of like, and I don't mean to go down like the panpsychism route, but it does make me think about I don't know, like just the more we focus on naming things, are we depriving one hemisphere of our brain from doing what it's supposed to also do? That's my question.
Yeah, of course. You fall into Wittgenstein's problem. Fall into Gödel's incompleteness thing. That's why you like to explain stuff. You have to use language. But if you just pick it up intuitively, if you use the other side of your brain just to work it, then that's fine. Music itself is a language. So, in that sense, right? And any physical damage um, can reorient the way your brain works. Your brain is just a computer. Uh, but yeah, no, you will run into limitations of these things. It may feel unsatisfying, but I don't know what to tell you, kid. That's the way I've seen it so far in my life.
No, I mean, well, no, you don't have to like have an answer or anything. I guess I'm just thinking about as the desert reveals itself, and you brought up Jung, which was a pretty appropriate author to bring up. It ends up leading into sort of this like, what does it all mean? Some of the psychology questions, the philosophy questions, and those are like human questions that we've been thinking for, you know,
You gotta wander the
civilization
desert.
after civilization, huh?
You gotta wander the desert or the dead internet. Like all you gotta do. You will
Seems like that's what we have to do.
you will find the answers if you want to look and are willing to.
Ah,
The
but it's the
answers,
question that drives us.
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
And if you
you
don't know
guys,
what question to
honestly.
ask.
hey, sometimes the question is the answer, right?
Well, and it gets to that question where you were saying earlier about Googling and how it's like, well, if you don't know what to Google, you don't know what to Google. There's no more like organically stumbling upon stuff. So I don't know. It made sense to me. Did that make sense? Maybe it didn't.
No, it did. It's a fun series of questioning and thinking, and there's no one right answer, right? But no, it takes a wandering spirit to do it. And what sucks is, I think oftentimes in life, the answers you find are unsatisfying. It's just sort of the way life goes for human beings, I would imagine. At least for me. Like, but that's the answer still.
There you have it, Nick.
What? What do I have? What are you
It.
guys talking about? What was it relation to?
Hmm?
Baudrillard? We talking Baudrillard here? Because
The
that's the last
internet.
thing I said.
The internet
That
is the desert of the real. All right, and you have to wander it until you find some dead bodies, and you have to
Okay.
reanimate them and send those
There we go.
zombies.
And I was saying we've
Dog
already tried
to search for
pragmatism, which is naming things and being happy with truth with the lowercase t, and we weren't happy with that. So now we have to try something else. Or look within.
Okay, so Bing yourself then. Why don't you both go Bing yourselves? I don't know where else to go with this. I
Hey,
think
that's one of my favorite pastimes, right? Don't you talk about that.
no, I want to touch bases about a couple more things with you guys, but I also wanted to bring in just because we were talking about bots earlier, and I forgot to bring in the sort of mythical analogs to bots that I was able to come up with. So we mentioned briefly the concept of automatons, and those are ancient automatons were mechanical figures that could perform tasks and movements. And basically like the physical form of a bot, you would see something like you could even see like the Fantasia with Mickey and the mops as automatons.
There's Disney, any of the Disney animatronics that run, except for the Yeti in Florida because they're too cheap to fix it. But any other ones that actually work properly.
Yeah. The Hall of Presidents. There you go. Those are automatons.
There you go. Yeah.
Then we also have the golem, which comes from Jewish folklore, and it was an artificially created being that is brought to life to perform tasks and to protect its creator. Similar to bots as well. Then you have Cyclops, which were actually they were destined to, let's see, work in forges and craft powerful weapons for the gods. And they basically, that's all they were allowed to do. Then we also have the jinn, which we've talked about before. And angels and demons in sort of the tradition of being supernatural beings that can affect human affairs and bring either good or evil. Similarly, bots have the ability to sort of bring about a good, a good outcome or a bad outcome, of course, with the whoever sent the bot out's intention. The bot does not have its own intentions, which is, again, much like the automaton, doesn't have its own intentions. It's just a tool and can be used to, mop up the wizard's floor or destroy the wizard's castle, right? If we're going to use the Mickey Mouse analog there. But those are the ones that I could find for mythical characters. Now I wanted to move on to things like more advanced stuff that we've talked about, not really in episodes, but stuff that we've spoken to each other about just in our off time. Most notably, we talk about things like Chat GPT, but also the concept of deep fakes. I don't know. Have you guys seen that Tom Cruise one? I'm sure you have, Mike. The Tom Cruise deep fake video.
I've seen plenty of deep fakes in my day. Academically, I've made a few. So yeah, I know I don't have to see the time. I know the basic idea.
No, I know you know it. I was just saying that the technology started off quite rudimentary, and has uh, exponentially gotten better and better. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's the looks the optimization curve that they've been good on.
Ayla, what do you think about deepfakes?
I'm not really sure what that is.
So it's the ability for you to overlay somebody's face onto a body, or to even to generate a body through the computer now too. But there is a very famous video that's going around not too long ago, recently, that's sort of demonstrating the abilities of deepfakes, and it's a young Tom Cruise being interviewed, and I think it's about 6 minutes long. Um, and it kind of delves into the uncanny valley a little bit once in a while, which is another episode you guys can check out. But it's shocking how good the accuracy is getting with this type of stuff, which opens just a can of worms in of in itself. And I have a feeling that this is just going to fall right back to personal responsibility. So we'll just leave it at that. But the implications for utilizing things like deep fakes are quite troublesome. And all I can say is I hope that we have mechanisms to combat that type of thing.
I would be happy if they were made illegal, and then any sort of open source deepfake engine on GitHub or any sort of version control thing was made private, was forced to be made private, only because it becomes very hard to figure out if it was a deepfake on the video or not. And the last thing I want for any human being, so like you have to train your deepfake. So the more you're out there in pictures and on video, the easier it is to train, which makes celebrities a very easy target. The last thing I would hate, or the last thing I would want to see is any poor celebrity be posed in deepfake doing something compromising and have their whole career ruined. Nobody should have their career ruined over a majority of things. Of course, there's something like murder or eating grapes or something like that you can, but deepfakes make it a lot easier to train people.
Yes.
So I think our laws should step up to that. And if you're doing deepfakes, then it should be treated as sort of like creating viruses, or like it should be in a very controlled setting with security measures around. And it should be only done for research or for unconventional warfare. But that's a whole nother conversation,
Yeah, definitely. The fact that it's commercially available is quite shocking to me. Ayla, did you get a chance to see the Tom Cruise one?
Well, no. I mean, I'm just listening. I didn't. I wasn't gonna watch it while you guys.
No,
were
you
talking,
don't have to. Don't
but
worry about it. I just wanted to give you a reference to something.
Oh yeah. So yeah, earlier I was talking about remembering a news article about being unable to notice fake videos and audio and stuff. So fake people, I mean, that's just like par for the course. And I do think that it's going to require sort of a what's the word, like buyer beware sort of thing, like it would be great if there was some legislation to sort of protect people. But I do think that, like, if you see something, to just sort of be more mindful about. I don't know. I'm not really sure how how like as society we're going to have to kind of integrate that. But I guess I would say that we will have to reconcile that. There will need to be a lot of public education campaigns. Let's just say that,
I'll tell you what, the first case that is involved, that where a deep fake is involved, is going to be a precedent setting case for sure.
Yeah, and that's something I have a problem with a little bit. I understand that legal cases set legal precedent, but there are other ways for laws to be put into place. And I know a lot of people of the younger generation are big advocates of like a digital Bill of Rights, which I like that idea. And I don't know why nobody an office talks about that. But
Well, I mean, it should just be the Bill of Rights with just a couple of addendums. So I don't know. I think a digital Bill of Rights might be a misnomer. We just need to uphold people's civil liberties and
in the
you know,
digital sphere,
in the
right?
digital sphere, yeah. Like what Mike's getting at, you shouldn't be able to construct a false image or video of somebody doing something illegal or illicit. Like
And how do we know that like fancy lawyers aren't just using deep fakes to prove someone's innocence because they were at this store buying a Slurpee and they weren't over at this other place? I mean, like, because I do feel like the systems haven't caught up to the reality of like that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't think we have either. I think that that's kind of where we're all culminating, is that if it's the desert of the real inside of us, it's also the inability to sort of grow in proportion to these advancing technologies. Like, it's going to be a very hard sharp learning curve for us as humans. We have this new ability to create absolute illusion. And that's going to take some adjusting in order to not just screw up society completely.
Yeah, and I apologize if I interrupted or we're being overly verbose. Been drinking quite a bit, but our government's going to have to actually put in some work hours and not just bullshit read a 12,000 page bill and say that they read it and make some decision on it. You're gonna have to call some people in and figure some stuff out.
Yeah, because there's just gonna be a lot of people that are gonna suffer until that gets sorted out.
Yeah, right. and definitely, Keelan. There's Carter. There's definitely there's a bunch of use cases for deep fakes that can be very damaging to the society.
Yeah. And just society in general. Yeah.
I'm just going over them in my mind, and I'm like,
it's awful. The implications are just absolutely terrifying, and we gotta really hope, like Mike said, that just doesn't happen, and that we sort of legislate a way to make sure that people don't fall victim to that.
But on the other side, right now, one good thing is that it leaks towards plausible deniability. So if you get caught up in
it wasn't me, it was
anything. It was deep fake, bro. I swear it was not me.
I didn't jaywalk, officer. That was a deep fake.
Yeah, what the hell you're talking about?
Dude, see, now that would be pretty great, is if the legal precedence came from somebody fighting like a little red light ticket.
Right.
And the judge actually was like, that's actually a really good case, mister. And then like a reporter snaps a picture and they're like, oh my God, da 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 da. And then everybody uses that. And then it might have to just be like grassroots stuff, like, hey, government, just want to let you know, it's a little.
Yeah, we're
not.
Might want to
fix this.
You gotta fix this, please.
Please.
The funny thing is, like, I've spent enough time in tech and been around a lot of tech people. The people that get called into Congress, they may not know the nitty-gritty science behind stuff. They may be able to talk to Congress about their company and whatnot, but unless you get those engineers and research scientists in there around the front lines, you're not going to learn a damn thing. You're going to get the executive summary, and then you're going to get someone protecting the company.
You know what I would do? If I was one of those scientists, I would create a deep fake of everybody in that meeting and then show it to them right at the beginning of the meeting and say,
oh my God,
any questions?
You voted on this.
Yeah.
Any questions? I can make you say the ABCs backwards like a little girl right now.
Yeah.
And then get a couple bots to run that hashtag 10,000 times, and suddenly it's the
trending.
Dominant hashtag out of 300.
Now you got the newspapers reporting on a sensation. Yeah. See,
you know what?
Now
you're giving me ideas, and I don't like these ideas.
Well, you're also
I already have some other ideas about bot networks bringing down small country telecommunication networks. I don't need this as well.
Right.
Oh, geez. Well, and I'm thinking of like Miracle on 34th Street, where you're just bringing in all these like bot cases, but it's all
Mhm.
like a digital. I don't know. I gotta. Yeah.
So even like look at it like this, right? If you had if these voting machines never become open source, I mean everything all the way from the chips inside all the way up to the logic going in front, all one has to do is do a Stuxnet. All somebody would have to do is hack one single chip and then flip one bit, and then you could change a vote. And then now the people that are voting become your botnet.
Yeah, without even knowing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have kept with the Chads, man.
Unknowing. Yeah.
And there's no way to flip it back. There's no way to figure it out right now. Next,
We should have unwitting bot shirts. Just
Yeah.
walking around.
Or like the sticker where it's like I voted and make a whole bunch
I
of them, but
botted.
it's like I voted
bought.
question mark.
no, I like the I bought it.
I bought
I
it.
bought it. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Nick, did you come up with
Bleep
that
bloop.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the I bought it. That one's
Bought
pretty
it.
good.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll have a shirt up like that. That would be a good one. But in the line of deepfakes, I wanted to also bring to your attention Val-E. Have you guys heard of this one? Val-E is the offshoot of DALL-E, which is the AI art generator. Val-E is the voice AI generator that can take I believe it's a 3-minute clip of audio and then generate anything you want from any person ever.
Yeah.
And they're already sort of doing this with very popular people. You can do like Joe Rogan or Robert De Niro. But this software just needs 3 minutes of somebody's audio, and they can generate an infinite amount of words from that person.
Yeah, Eminem had one too recently. The basic idea behind it, you can argue, comes back from video games, like sports video games, where they had to figure out a way to say everybody's name and even custom names without having some poor person sit in the recording booth and read a dictionary of names.
Oh, right.
So what you find out is that all of our language syntactically comes down to syllables. And if you could break down those syllables and just have them say that finite set of syllables, I guess, or not syllables, but like the base sounds, then you can put that all together and form it in any generative way. Generative meaning to generate. You could generate all these different sounds into whatever you want to say, and it appears that it takes 3 minutes of sound to isolate, index all these individual sounds to generate any other longer sounds that form these things we call words into sentences and meaning.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I've listened to some of the playbacks, the video. I mean, it's a little hinky, but just barely on the and some voices are better than others for sure. But it's incredible how accurate you can get. Again, what I saw was they took 3 minutes of a Joe Rogan podcast, and then they just had him go off about the app itself and just talk about the app that was creating this generating voice. And it was pretty spooky.
What do you think my voice sounds like this and I look like this?
Yeah.
Are you sure I'm a human?
That can't be now. I mean, honestly, we're all in digital solipsism. So
yeah, we're all bots just talking to each other. Good job. You signed up to the first
looping at each other.
Yeah, you signed up to the first federally approved CIA,
Bot
FBI.
podcast.
Yeah,
Botcast.
I guess.
Good
Now
job.
I'm just thinking of bot flies, where I'm like, ew.
Gross.
Welcome
Yeah.
to the Twilight Zone, kids.
Well, and I'm laughing. Keelan commented, he's like, can't name anything that can't be deep faked. And I think that's the heart of it. Is it really makes you kind of stop and think about everything, and you're just like, and and I do think that it's worth mentioning the concept of just influence. There are a lot of agents of influence, and it's important to know when you're being influenced. And just that from a psychological perspective, coupled with the existence of deepfake, you're just kind of like, ooh, that's a bit spicy. That's a bit spicy for a Friday evening.
Oh yeah, it's all good. I
Build
wanted
the
to
psychotech
yeah,
not be
build. There
influenced.
you go. Exactly.
Mhm.
You got to build resilience, that's for sure. And you can check out that previous episode on Psychotech on how to build resilience over at Exofathom on Facebook and on YouTube. Go check that out. We
Wow.
just had that last episode. And
soon.
episode 2 will be coming up soon, right?
Yeah, called Psychotrek, the
Awesome.
next generation.
Psychotech 2 Electric Boogaloo. All right. Well, I wanted to end this out with a little poem, and then we can wrap this up. So if you guys are ready, I'm ready. Okay. The internet once was a space of liberty where ideas flowed freely and all could see a world of endless possibility. But now it's grown cold, a shadow of its form, with bots and algorithms driving the norm. And what was once bright now feels forlorn. Echo chambers and filter bubbles isolate our thoughts, our beliefs, and seal our fate. Trapped in a world where truth is up for debate. Deep fakes and misinformation spread with ease, while online harassment makes one's heart freeze. And the webs become a place of distrust and unease. Oh, humanity, take heed and take care of this digital world that we brought to bear, and restore it with love and compassion to share. For the internet is a reflection of us, our hopes, our fears, and our moral fuss. And a better world is within all of us. And there we go.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
wanted to, yes. Huh?
I'm not doing the snaps. I'm like rubbing my fingers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. So I wanted to let you guys know that everything that's been said on this episode was created by ChatGPT. I did not make this episode. This was ChatGPT's episode, including
All
the
of us.
poem and the haiku at the beginning.
All of us are ChatGPT.
We all are ChatGPT. Yeah. No, but really, this episode was created by ChatGPT. So thank you so much, ChatGPT. I have a long conversation about dead internet theory with it, and I took its ideas. So,
but as us speaking and saying it has made it fair use. So Microsoft,
Yes.
if you want to come at us with any sort of like royalties, you could go fuck yourself.
yeah. We made commentary and all that. We were transformative about it. But
Yes.
but I did want to, basically just use ChatGPT for this episode because I think it sort of reinforces a little bit of what I was trying to get at, which is that things are becoming so sophisticated now that perhaps we are playing with things that we really don't know the repercussions of.
Would you use any other chatbot to create an episode, or why ChatGPT? Is it because it's pop?
Just because it's the biggest one right now. I've used other
vogue.
chat. I've used other chat ones. I used philosophy.ai, I think, which was a decent one. But with this one, I just had ChatGPT talk to me about dead internet theory. And let's see.
Did you shift the hyperparameters at all?
No,
Or
I didn't. I
just
didn't
fix it
turn him into
default?
Dan.
Yeah, no,
just ChatGPT.
Yeah, no, they have some hyperparameters that you're not adding a layer of programming to anything. You're just shifting the weight of the variables. Like tomato is a tomato, but you're changing it, the price per tomato from $1 to like 75 cents or something. But you still get a tomato.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I was interested in that. But ChatGPT is good. It's good. They're gonna make a shit ton of money on it until other people start making their own thing. But I wonder about the patents on that. But no, it's cool. I like that it was made by ChatGPT. Very fitting for the episode.
Absolutely. And there's a couple of questions that I'd left out of our conversation, so I can give it to you now. I asked it to draw a connection with dead internet theory and any human mythology that is applicable. And it came back with the concept of dead internet is often compared to the myth of the Tower of Babel. In the biblical story, the people of Babel sought to build a tower that could reach the heavens, unifying their language and culture. However, God punished them by causing them to speak different languages and scattered them across the earth. Similarly, the internet was once seen as a tool that would bring people together, breaking down linguistic and cultural barriers and fostering a global sense of community. However, as the internet has become increasingly dominated by bots, algorithms, and AI generated content, it has become a place where misinformation and manipulation are rampant, and where it is increasingly difficult to distinguish between truth and falsehood.
Yeah, but misinformation is always fit under the class of information. This is where the bias of ChatGPT can be questioned.
Mm.
But I don't. This word misinformation. There's been throughout the history of time. There's been always been information that has been misinformation. I.e., that berry is really good. Or no, have you ever seen? Oh shit! Have you ever seen that? Not Taxi Driver. Have you ever seen the show Taxi? I think it's
Yeah. With Andy Kaufman. Yeah.
Where they talk about blueberries aren't blueberries. Like they're blueberries, but they aren't blueberries. Like not all berries that are blue are blueberries. It's the same thing where like it's all information, but misinformation is just a subclass of information. This sort of categorization is an attempt to build some sort of authoritarian notion on this thing of information. So, like, I can tell you those berries are safe to eat. You go eat them and you die. I still gave you information. It's misinformation is no different than information. You get me? And where ChatGPT comes in and tries to make this whole new class of misinformation is a bias of the programmers and the scraping and the information gathering coming out.
Yep. Because AI has to have something to build off of, and it's building off of an imperfect thing, which is us. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got for tonight. Anything else you guys wanted to add? No?
Great episode. 10 out of 10.
Awesome.
Would talk about again.
Yay. Ayla, you doing okay?
No, I'm just kidding.
No?
No, I'm fine. No, this is great. It's good to have names and updated terms to match stuff that's been rolling around in my head, right? Like dead internet theory. I haven't actually heard of that term prior to this episode, so that's really handy. Also, too, I think that while scary, there also is the potential for us to sort of steer the ship into a different place. And so I just think about how I remember learning my multiplication tables as a kid and thinking, well, why do I have to learn this? Like, I have a calculator. And it was because maybe at some point they decided to stop teaching it and they were like, oh, nope, bad idea. And then they brought it back. I don't know if that happened, but I'm just saying that, like, I do think that we might get to a point where we rely on all this stuff, realize it's so faulty, and then reassess it as what it is, which is a tool, not something that's like, I don't know, demoralizing to the human soul.
I mean,
So
fire warms and burns at the same time, right? So yes,
right.
If
And
we're rediscovering fire, we need to burn ourselves, but we'll also use it to build the world.
yeah, and it's giving me major Thoth vibes or Thoth. So go check out that episode because that is the god of wisdom and knowledge, and I really liked that conversation. Gave me a lot to think about, and the mythology and the way ancient peoples thought about the acquisition of knowledge and its pitfalls. Really good. So good episode, Nick. And
All right.
Chat GPT.
Yes.
AI overlords.
Hold on. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's after that one question.
A
that
second
I asked
yeah.
about-
I literally thought you already asked a question. I was like, oh no.
Oh boy.
I read you like a book. Is the internet dead? Yes
Is
or
the
no?
internet dead?
Yes or no?
Definitely over. No.
Nothing is over, kid. What are you talking about?
I think yes, but as it is a phoenix that can rise anew. So Yeah, it's effectively dead right now, but it doesn't mean it won't have a bigger renaissance after this, because it seems to me that there is a cyclical nature to all of these things anyways, and so it being dead is only probably just the precursor to it booming again
So like a
in
dark
some
age.
other way. Yeah,
Yeah, a
maybe.
little bit. Well, I also like the idea that you started this episode about like the what did you miss about the old internet?
Mhm.
And I think for me, um thinking back on this, it was connecting with your friends, having your little space. And so, as things sort of degrade, I'm finding people more frequently going back to text or direct message communication or in person, heaven forbid,
Ooh, novel.
um,
Yeah.
dinners and stuff. So, I do think like, yeah, there's definitely some sort of a really cool renaissance or re-envisioning that's on the horizon that could be good. Um, so there's that.
The choice is yours.
Oh,
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you must find the oasis within within your internal desert. So um, that relies on you and all of us as a people, and hopefully we will start to cherish and prioritize things that will help bring the internet back to its former crazy glory at some point. That would be fun.
plus LimeWire. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, bring back LimeWire.
I mean, that's basically what
Yeah.
Spotify is. But anyway,
Yeah, no, I know. Okay, I think we're done, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to Mike, and thank you to Ayla. Appreciate you guys as always, and thank you to you guys listening out there. I saw Big Mike and I saw Keelan. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you tuning in. And yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up here, guys. If you want to give us a thumbs up, we would really appreciate it. A subscription to our YouTube page would really help us out. We are trying to build that audience out and can't do it without your help. So thank you so much for stopping by, and please consider subscribing. We also have a list of podcasts that you can go check out on Think Ring Talks on Facebook. We have If Numbers Could Talk Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Wednesdays and Sundays is Screen Time Continuum at 8:30 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays over on Twitch at Strawberries and Coffee with Dijon. Also on Twitch with Big Mike, King of Ilion with underscores in between the words. Big Mike, you got to change your name, bud. Friday nights is Exofathom, and Saturday mornings is Keelan and Bobby with This Married Moment. So go check out all those podcasts, give them thumbs up, let us know what you think, and stay tuned for next week. I think Ayla's turn. And then the week after that is going to be episode 2 for Mike and his Psychotech. So keep coming back here Friday night at 8 p.m. and we will be giving you fun conversations. Until next time, Cognonauts, you stay out there and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Toodles.
You finally did it.